Share Shootout brought to you by Lion of Africa Insurance, insuring South Africa's future.
You're back with Share Shootout here on CNBC Africa. Before the break, Nick and Gary gave us two of their share picks, and both of them took out bazookas and loaded them up with super explosive shells and blasted the various picks into oblivion. Very unreasonable, very mean, but very entertaining. Richmont, too expensive, says Nick Norman Smith. Sorry, Gary Booysen, you get shot down on that one. Consolidated Infrastructure Group, interesting, nice play. Don't mind small companies, says Nick Norman Smith, but if it hits one or two wobbles, it could go to zero. That's what the kind of risk-reward ratio that he doesn't like. So, both of those, Richmont and Consolidated Infrastructure Group, are shot down mercilessly. And then Nick Norman Smith's picks, a value trap is Anglo-American, says Gary Booysen. Nick Norman Smith is very adamant that Anglo-American holds value. He's prepared to wait, and he's also prepared to wait for someone else other than these two, to like Steinhoff. Did you give Steinhoff the thumbs up or the thumbs down? No, you gave it a thumbs down. You like it, but you're cautious of it. I was getting a couple of mixed messages there. So both Steinhoff and Anglo-American PLC were shot down, which brings us to the final picks this evening before we have to obliterate one of our players tonight. Gary Booysen, you go first in this round with MTN in 30 seconds, starting now.
Yeah, I mean, MTN, solid powerhouse, again, looking for that African expansion. But I think the kick, I mean, we've talked about the demand for cell phones in Africa. I mean, we've got the data numbers out recently. Very, very good, increasing data revenue dramatically. ARPU is stable, even though they're bringing on new customers, which is also a very good sign. But I think the kicker is going to be Myanmar. I think, they're in the last 15 for that economy. It's a very exciting economy to be a part of. 2 places left, and I think they've got a better than 2 in 15 chance of getting that right, considering who they've partnered with.
Ooh, it sounds like you're taking a bit of a bet. Didn't I see a story somewhere today, Nick Norman Smith, they've lost 500,000 customers in South Africa or something like that?
Yeah, I think they're under pressure. Look, I have to say, Bruce, that it is the least worst of the stocks. So I'm glad I waited. I still think it's a little bit expensive, and there's quite a bit of risk in there. But I don't think you're going to lose your shirt. It is a wonderful business with a lot of very exciting customer bases. Africa has obviously been hugely profitable for them. There's some seriously risky areas. Countries like Nigeria. The regime is still tough, even though there's a lot of positive news out there.
But they've got business in places like Iran. There's been huge scandal around Iran. Their own investigation, of course, have cleared them of doing anything wrong in Iran. And one just looks at the geopolitical risk of a company like MTN, which by necessity goes into some of the more adventurous parts of the world. Risk, reward. You don't like too much risk.
No, exactly. And, this is interesting because 10 years ago, you could have bought MTN on probably a single-digit P multiple. So same business there, but people were very nervous of the geopolitical risk. Now they've forgotten about it, and suddenly things are great. Because why? Well, they don't like the developed world anymore, so developing markets are the flavor of the month.
All right, so if MTN had been the first share that he'd chosen this evening, would you have shot it down?
Yes, I would have.
But you're obliged to pick it. You say it is the least worst of the picks of this evening. Out of Richmont, Consolidated Infrastructure Group, and MTN with a market cap now 317 billion rand. I think I bought them at 12 rand or something, and thought I was a genius when I sold them at 36. But that's the great problem with companies like MTN with these great growth profiles, aren't they? They've got great growth profiles. But Vodacom's trading update came out this week, really, really strong in terms of data growth. Has MTN got a similar picture coming through for it?
Yeah, look, they've got a lot more newer markets, so markets where they're still making a lot of money off voice. Obviously, data becomes a bigger thing as the market becomes more developed. Voice competition comes in. They can't make as much money, and they need to start selling data. Remember, MTN in Africa, there are a lot of regions that don't even have landlines, so the voice part is much more valuable. But that'll come down. Their average revenue per user will come down as they spread further across and sweat their assets. It does cost more to send data around a network, so don't underestimate the reinvestment requirements.
He's been quite nice to you, Gary, and he's accepted MTN, so we don't need to fight about that anymore. But why MTN over a Vodacom, just for interest sake?
I like a slightly more aggressive risk profile.
Yeah, a little bit more adventurous.
I think, Vodacom's numbers were very good, and if when we hopefully get sort of the full picture on it, I'm hoping that Vodacom does show some more expansion into Africa, because at the moment it's very limited to the South African market.
Absolutely right. Okay, Nick Norman-Smith, your final pick for this evening. I bet he doesn't know what it is, but he does now, because your 30 seconds on Sun International start now.
Okay, not difficult to sell gambling. It's been popular for hundreds of years. It'll be popular for hundreds of years because people remain greedy. So your earnings visibility is very good. Huge barriers to entry in South Africa because there's only 40 licenses in the country, and Sun International have around half of the gaming market. A lot of money to be made from tax revenue from the government, so they're going to protect that. So not a lot of competition. It's at a cyclical low once again, and these businesses have big fixed costs. So when the cycle turns, they're going to have big operational gearing, so they can boost their earnings quite substantially. And finally, exciting growth potential in South America.
You're stealing time, be careful. That's -2 points, whatever that means, I don't know. Gary Booysen, Sun International. Tsogo Sun has come out with announcements over the last week where it's spending hundreds of millions of rand in Gauteng, expanding places like Monte Casino, looking to spend hundreds of millions of rand on the African continent. Sun International was chief executive list for about 12 months. There's a new guy in, chartered accountant, who's running the place. What do you think?
I like it. I take it. I accept it.
Well, you have no choice.
Yeah, I have no choice. So no, it's good. No, I think, like you say, I mean, it is a very cyclical business, and I mean, I think if you look at sort of hotel rooms as well, they're not full. The vacancy rates are quite high, but you do expect that to pick up. So you are looking at a longer term view on it, and I think
Latin America.
Latin America, I don't know too much about their Latin America operations.
They've got Chile, and they've got looking at Paraguay or something.
Yeah, it was the one hotel in Chile as well. Yeah, but again, I mean, I haven't looked into the company too much, but it looks like, as a longer term play, definitely. I don't know. I'd have to look at short term again, iffy for me.
Why then Sun International over Tsogo Sun?
Because Tsogo Sun is a bit too expensive. The best entry point is HCI. But you've chatted about that on the show before, so we can't discuss it.
So, but the gambling theme is strong. Disposable income levels are under pressure, but one needs that recovery in disposable income levels, and becomes a bit like the hotel industry. Once you start filling the rooms,
exactly,
and the rest is profit.
And occupancies have been, the last year or two have been the worst that we've seen in the industry in a number of years. So, and it is starting to turn. So,
it's worth a punt. Is it better to buy the Sun International share or take? What is Sun International share trading at? About $100 to take $1,000 to the casino and have 10 goes on red or black.
Buy the share anytime.
Okay, because the house is stacked against the guys who put the money on the tables. Right, which brings us to the point where, I hate this spot. Actually, I do. I love this spot. It's the only power I have in the world, where I get to choose who stays and who goes. Should it be Gary Booysen with Richmont, Consolidated Infrastructure Group, and MTN? 3 very interesting picks. Richmont, too expensive, says Nick Norman-Smith. Consolidated Infrastructure Group, too much risk, says Nick Norman-Smith. MTN, too expensive, but the least of a bad lot, says Nick Norman-Smith for Gary Booysen's 3 shares. Now, Nick Norman-Smith from Lentus Asset Management, the value trap of Anglo American PLC, despite the fact that there is somebody who is a very powerful and a very influential and very strong chief executive who's been put into Cynthia Carroll's job at Anglo American in Mark Kirifani. You say a chief executive can't make that much of a difference. Look at Apple since Steve Jobs disappeared. Maybe the chief executive does matter. Steinhoff, an adventurous company, certainly a very flexible company. It has morphed and metamorphosized many times over the years, and finally there is a real business case in there to be seen. And he does like it, says Gary Booysen. He likes Steinhoff, but did shoot it down. Sun International, however, he did accept. Now, what I've got to do is make probably, and these choices get harder and harder as the fighters become smarter and smarter. Do I like the arguments of Nick Norman-Smith more than I like the arguments of Gary Booysen? Frankly, if this was a boxing match, there'd be a point in it. Really, it is too close to call, but I have to call it. So I have to make the choice and say, Gary Booysen, you are a courageous stock picker, putting in an Angolan punt. I like your attitude, which is why, Nick Norman-Smith, I'm afraid you have to go. You wasn't expecting that, and I don't think you were either. We'll be hosting another Shootout next week on Tuesday on CNBC Africa. Well done to Gary Booysen from Vunani Private Clients. A fun fight we had this evening. Remember, catch me on Twitter. Give us your share Shootout suggestions and your thoughts. Follow me on Twitter. It's one word, @BruceBusiness. Catch us next time as we catch out our losers and we pick a winner. We shoot out anybody who doesn't amuse us nearly enough. Good night.